Well, Ellen, thank you so much and the coalition for doing this and for inviting us. This is really important, I think, as organizations share the various skills and experiences they have. And we're pleased at Women's March to be part of the coalition and to be invited to make our presentation tonight. What I'm going to do is turn to Debbie next to introduce herself, so you get a chance to get to know her a bit more. Then I'll bat cleanup, so to speak, and say a few words about myself, and then we'll give an overview of what we're going to do tonight. Debbie?
Thank you, Frank. So I'm originally from Connecticut. I moved to Cape Coral, Florida in 2016. I spend the winters there and the summers on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which is where I am right now. I'm an accountant by profession and have a part-time home-based accounting business. I was one of the founding members of Women's March Fort Myers, but prior to that, I had no community organizing background. I joined Women's March because I wanted to become more politically active and try to make a difference in my community.
And I've really enjoyed working with Debbie. One of the things we'll emphasize tonight is that when you do this kind of work, it's important to have backup. It can be a solo act, but having a partner to work with, talk through issues and share the load. And as Kathy Mayo knows, who's president of Women's March, is that Debbie has really done a terrific job in terms of helping us accomplish our objectives. As Ellen said, my name is Frank Fear. We moved to Cape Coral in 2010. And before that, I was a faculty member and administrator at Michigan State for almost 40 years. Very interestingly, community development and community organizing and leadership is the work that I did at Michigan State, and also was able to translate that too in terms of administrative work I did. I ended my career as Vice Dean of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And so I thought in retirement, what better way to give back by taking hopefully what I've learned, and also did research, writing, engaged in outreach on community organizing and development work, and be a volunteer. And so I'm a great believer in the grassroots approach to change, where everyday citizens roll up their sleeves and do things for the betterment of their communities and society. And actually, Carol invited me to get involved actively in the MSU Alumni Association, and actually did a lot of social media work for that group. And then when another colleague, Marion Frayne, invited me to join Women's March, both Kathy Fear and myself joined. Again, a grassroots group that what we really like about it is both a protest group. No, you shouldn't be doing that, and we don't want you to do that, and also engaging in forward thinking. And so it's been a great experience for about 4 years now. I think we started in 2017, and Debbie's going to say more about Women's March in a second. So with that as background, let me, I don't know why this is not working, but there we go. Give you an overview of tonight's program. We've already done the introductions. And as I mentioned, Debbie's going to give you a bit more information on the organization, because that's important. Social media is not something that just is a boat on its own bottom, so to speak. It's connected to your organization and your objectives. And then I'm going to give an overview of our social media program, how we use various social media platforms, specifically Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then I'll hand the baton back to Debbie. She's going to talk about how social media interfaces with platforms like Eventbrite. She'll talk about what that is, and Mailchimp. She'll talk about what that is too. Always very interesting names and labels they have. And I'll talk about the interface between social media and our audiocast platform, and also our YouTube. And then we've identified, Debbie and I have a number of issues that we think are important to consider. We had to consider, and we'd like to share those with you. as you think about getting more involved in social media, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussions. Before I turn it back to you, well, actually, I'm going to turn it back to you, Debbie. Anything you want to add before you give an overview of Women's March Fort Myers?
No.
Okay. It's yours.
Thank you. So Women's March Fort Myers is an evolving organization. As Frank mentioned, we've only kind of been together for, less than 5 years. We just kind of formulated our mission and vision. Our mission is to mobilize, educate, and empower the community to improve women's lives by acting on issues and removing injustices. And our vision is a community where women are free from political, societal, and economic oppression. Thank you. We became a 501c4 organization in September 2019 after organizing a very successful march at Centennial Park in Fort Myers. Our first march was held on Sunday, January 20th, 2019, with speakers and was attended by around 300 people. So we were pretty happy about that. We're a community-based organization made up of local volunteers. Our founder, Marion Frayne, got a group of people together in the fall of 2018 to organize our first march. So we had our first meeting on November 15th to organize our march on January 20th. So it was quite an endeavor. After becoming a 501c4 organization, we formed a board of directors and organized a march and rally with speakers at the Alliance for Arts in Fort Myers on Saturday, January 18, 2020, our second march. So this march and rally was attended by over 500 people. So we grew quite a bit in that year, and primarily through social media, which Frank will talk about. In October 2020, one of the other events we did, we partnered with local candidates and 8 to 10 community organizations to hold a call to action sidewalk demonstration in downtown Fort Myers. And then in 2021, we had another rally scheduled in January, but because of COVID concerns, we decided to go virtual. And that was a whole new thing, which, we had to completely rely on social media and other forms of online communication. So in January, we had an online rally called Our Path Forward. In February, we celebrated Black History Month with an online program. And in March of this year, we had an online celebration of International Women's Day. So we put on 3 online presentations in 3 months. And that again was a big endeavor. We also endorsed local and state candidates for the first time for the 2020 election. So the important thing to understand is we're self-trained. Some of us have backgrounds that help us in our volunteering, but basically we're learning as we go. We manage and balance this work with the other things that we have in our lives. Some of us have part-time work that we're still doing, or other things that that we still are working on. Some of us have jobs, real jobs. We take on work that we can accomplish well. We learn our way into being able to perform effectively. And while we aspire to produce professional quality work, we seek to remain a grassroots organization. So that's especially with the virtual presentations that we've done, that's been quite a challenge to produce a professional production, almost a production level presentation, but recognizing that, we're all volunteers. Mm-hmm. So currently the Women's March Fort Myers board has 9 members, and we've been meeting on a monthly basis because we realize, we've kind of in the past kind of lost touch in the summer as we've all kind of gone off to different places, but we really need to keep in touch and keep maintain that contact on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, Debbie. Thank you very much. I'd like just to follow up on a couple points. That one bullet point where it says we learn our way into performance is extremely important, which means if we do this, you can too. Really, anyone can, as long as they're willing to devote the time and they're interested in the subject matter. So it's not as though we go to one training after another, learn it, and then apply it. We've got a text. Well, for example, as Debbie said, we had to learn how to do virtual, we had to pivot from face-to-face marches to virtual marches. And so we had to learn our way into how to do that. And it's amazing when you're under the gun like that, how much you can learn and perform. And the other thing is that this is a grassroots organization. I was mentioning before we started, Debbie and I were talking, that I have a colleague, a professor emeritus at Northwestern, who's making the distinction now between the third and the fourth sector, where the nonprofit sector is the third sector, corporate and public would be the other two. And his argument is that the nonprofit sector today is very different. Certainly I can say this from the work that I did with the nonprofit sector 20, 30 years ago, much more professionalized, much more what I would call corporatized, much more focus on fundraising, fewer mom and pop nonprofits, so to speak, which means there is a role, an important role for volunteers in grassroots. And John McKnight, a colleague at Northwestern, talks about grassroots organizations like ours as being the fourth sector. And I think it's a really important point he makes. So with that as background, let's give you an overview of our social media platform or program. The first thing we want to say is how important it is to view social media as connecting to your overarching communication strategy. And that includes multiple channels. And those channels will not all be social media channels. And that's going to become very, very clear as we go through tonight. It's not just about social media. It's about connecting social media to other communication channels. It can't just be social media. Those other channels include our website, includes email, obviously. As I mentioned, Debbie's going to talk about Eventbrite, which is a program we use to register folks who come to our event. Mailchimp, which is a platform that we use primarily for not only connecting with the press, but also for communicating our programs to those who've attended past programs. And then, this is another point we want to make, this is not a matter of you've got to have your social media communications program all worked out at the beginning. We realized about a year and a half into what we were doing that our social media was all text-based. It was all text-based. It was all reading, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram. It's you get on your device, your computer, and you read something or you respond. So we evolved it into an audio cast. We have our own audio channel, and we also decided we needed to have a video because, oh my God, in today's world, it's what we're seeing, not just what we're reading. I'm laughing and I shouldn't. I should be crying. You know that our society doesn't read the way it once did. It just doesn't. And so as a consequence, it's a visual society. And so YouTube, we had no presence on YouTube. And so we decided to start a YouTube channel. Now, again, learning our way into it is that we had no experience in either of those platforms. I'm smiling. We just learned our way into it. And so as you think about how all of these platforms fit together, the next point there is really important. We believe strongly in form follows function. So for example, what does that mean? It means whatever you're trying to accomplish, the function, what form is best. So for example, we'll cut an audio program, Kathy Mayo was on several of them, to promote either programs or a YouTube program, in-person program or a YouTube program, and we use the audio platform to promote it. And then what we do, and we have events, we'll always archive for later viewing on YouTube. We're going to do that tonight. So this program will be available not just in real time, but we'll edit this program and then make it available on our YouTube channel. And I'll talk more about that. But again, it's form follows function. We evolved our overarching program over time. We learned our way into it. As in fact, I hope I can do this so you can see it. I'm going to go to our website here that Debbie, and there's Debbie on our website. Hey, she put it together. She has the right to have her picture there. Any rate, Kathy, I don't see you there though. Now we got other members of our board there. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this picture because of the kids. That's what's great about the picture.
This is great. This is one of our marches.
This was our first march.
Yeah. And our website is really what we call our anchor. And it's really more static. People have to go to it when in fact with social media, we like to think we go to them, because in Facebook, for example, they'll get our posts on their news feed. But we put this together. And this is a very important part of this website, answering the question, which we get asked all the time: who are you and why do you do what you do? So one of our colleagues, Susan Mcguire from Pine Island, took the lead in answering the question why we march. And there is an answer there that is very well thought out, and we think really does represent our values. And then, if I remember correctly, I think it was Debbie who wrote, put this over here so I can see it better, who we are. Women's March is a women's-led movement bringing together people of all genders, ages, races, cultures, political affiliations, disabilities, and backgrounds. Organized by local people, that's very important. We affirm our shared humanity and declare our bold message of advocacy and self-determination. So that doesn't change. That stays up there. Whereas our social media feed changes pretty significantly. So let me get back up here and get back to where we are. And let me move this over here so I can see it. So let's talk specifically about our social media. We are what is referred to as a network-based organization. And I think every person here tonight is involved in an organization that is also network-based versus a bricks and mortar organization where people are affiliated, they have titles, they may go to the same office. We don't have an office. we exist as really a loosely connected, evolving group of people who have a shared interest. Without social media, we would be out in the middle of the ocean on a life raft. We need a way to get to people on a regular basis and to enable them to join with us so they become what we call followership. And there are really 4 functions to our social media program. And I would suspect that these functions apply, if not universally, pretty significantly. One is to communicate, obviously, given what Debbie said and what I've said about Women's March. That's the frame of reference for what we're communicating about. So if something comes up in the news that we think is important, given our mission and our vision, we'll communicate it. We also educate. That's very difficult to do in a social media setting, but at least we try to raise awareness about various issues. But I would say, and I think Debbie would too, as well as Kathy, that the 2 primary functions for our social media work is promoting our events and building a followership. And those 2 go together hand in hand. Promoting our events, building a followership go hand in hand. If you do only one, you're selling yourself short. When you promote your event, you're hoping that what you're going to do, your goal is that people will like the product and they will stay with you. And that actually, you can track this by the numbers, and that's what's happening in our work. And here's an example. And it's another example of the whole issue of learning your way in. When we started this work, we really didn't know who our audience was. So we conducted an experiment. We posted the same messages across 3 standard social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Each is different. Audiences are different. Ages are different. Locations can be different. And then we analyzed the numbers. Who was responding, how many, and where they lived. What we found is something that I think is really an important lesson. And that is, I would argue, and some people have disagreed with me, there are no universals here. It is all a matter of your particular organization. For example, when I was working with Carol on the Michigan State University alumni social media, the number of people who followed Michigan State Spartans locally on Twitter was like 4 times as many as Facebook. In our case, Women's March Fort Myers, it's about 10 times as many on Facebook because of the nature of the audience. We found that Twitter doesn't do much for promoting our events or for building our followership. Instagram, we learned, is terrific for networking with other Women's March groups around the country and around the world. So if you went to our Instagram page, you would see a lot of our followers are other Women's March groups. And when you think about it for a second, what better way to connect across the globe in women's marches than through Instagram, because you do it by pictures. You don't necessarily have to share the English language. But what we learned was Facebook clearly came out on top. Right now, we have about 700 Facebook followers. We analyze where they live. Obviously, most of them are in Southwest Florida. But our modal group is older women, 55 years of age and older. And that's been pretty stable. One of the things that we have learned, which we think is a good sign, is that over time, the number of people who are hanging with us, there are followers, has started to creep down a bit, so that, I'll give you an example here, that one of the programs that we offered, the one on Black history, you'll see the numbers. The modal group was a younger group of women, which we're very pleased. What we also learned, which is very important with Facebook, and again, you learn your way into this. There's a distinction in Facebook, and you may be familiar with this word, you may not be. It's called organic. What the organic feed means is you just put your stuff out there and people will look at it or not look at it, and that's organic. Then what you can use is a paid option where you actually pay Facebook. You tell them the kinds of people you're looking for, and then they can target a post or an announcement of an event specifically toward those folks. So we learned, learning our way into it, that what you can't, I shouldn't be laughing. All I'll say is Debbie and I were very busy. You can't just say Fort Myers area, including Punta Gorda, Cape Coral, blah, 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 blah. Because what you're going to get are people that you don't want to get. And so we got people who would respond to our posts, calling us out, telling us we were nuts. I mean, it got bizarre. We had one, I shouldn't get into the gross examples, but we actually had to kick people out because they were offensive, they were nasty, and they were there for a purpose. In fact, Debbie, and I think Kathy knows this, one person started calling me on my cell phone and wanted to engage in a battle about how I was nuts, and that, this person's perspective was truth. And So we took our Debbie said, Frank, take your telephone number off Facebook, which we did. So here's an example that I want to give to you about one of our programs. I have to go here. I screwed up, didn't I? I got to go here. There we go to do this. So here is our program. And by the way, this formatting is done for you by Facebook. And so here is a live feed of a program that we had. Debbie talked about it: Black History, Black Present, Black Future, 24/7, 365 in honor of Black History Month. And what it shows you, and you can see here, is that for this 7-day period, this promotion was viewed by 2,444 people, which is really good. And 71 people responded in some way. We've gotten up to as many as 25,000 eyeballs looking at our promotions or our programs using the paid audience, paid option. And you can see, if you can see this, look at the audience. For this program, the modal audience was women 35 to 44. And that was about 20% of our total reach. So that also tells you that your programs and subject matter do make a difference, that some of our programs are going to appeal to certain demographics. This is obvious, I guess, and other programs will appeal to other demographics. This is a program that appealed to a much younger demographic than others. And so one of the things that Debbie will talk about in a few seconds is how important it is, if you use Facebook and you're doing programs, to learn how to use the event function. That event function in combination with Eventbrite is absolutely critical. And I'm going to turn it over to Debbie to talk about how we connect social media to other platforms that we use that magnify the impact of social media.
Thank you, Frank. I'm actually going to try to switch to my screen. Yeah, okay. Which is basically our Facebook page, which Frank was showing you. And just to kind of show you, there's a tab for events, and the events that we've had are all kind of listed on here, so you can scroll down. And for the events that we did online, as Frank mentioned, Facebook, using the events on Facebook was critical to our online events. So this is another event, and we broadcast the event. We had the event on Zoom, so we had the presentation on Zoom with speakers, but we also had it on Facebook Live, so that anybody from Facebook could view it, and the recording stays on Facebook Live. So here's this is our event, and here's the recording if anybody wants to go back and look at it. And again, you can see the statistics. And this one, as Frank showed you the other event, this one had a little bit older audience. Which is more our demographic. But creating events on Facebook, you can provide, details of the event. If your event is in person, you can provide the location of the event so people can get directions to it. You can provide, as much information as you want about the event. You can get an idea how many people are going to come, because people will respond that they're going to go, or they might go, or so you get some idea of who's interested in your event. So then in conjunction with that, we also started using a program, a website called Eventbrite. Eventbrite is a free website that anybody can use. You just have to create an account. And for our online events, we just started using this. Well, actually, we started it with the sidewalk demonstration in October, but we primarily use it for our online events. And we found tremendous value in using this for several reasons. One is that you create an event, and you can kind of see, the responses. You can sell tickets. Our tickets were free. but you get a pretty, you get a much more definitive list of people who are interested in your events. So for this particular event, again, you can provide a lot of details about your event. You can add, after we created the event, we were able to go back and add information about the event, such as the agenda, so people could see that information. So you can put graphics in here and provide information about your event, who's going to be participating in it. The nice thing about this was we could collect donations. So the event was free, but we also had an option, where people could donate, and we did get donations from each of the events. And the other thing we could do is if we had merchandise, we could sell merchandise. So we happened to have masks, Women's March Fort Myers masks that we sold. So we offered those as well through this. So Eventbrite was really an important new thing that we started using in conjunction with the Facebook events that added a lot of value, and you can see, what we got in terms of contributions and sales. Also within Eventbrite, you can, anybody who registers for your event. So for example, when we did our first Zoom event, we wanted to be very careful about who we let into our Zoom meeting, when we had that presentation, because even though we were broadcasting it on Facebook, people can't make comments on Facebook. They can written comments, but they can't interrupt the Zoom presentation, if they're part of the Zoom. So by having people register, we were able to it creates a list of attendees that you can email, and then only those people got the Zoom links. So we found a lot of value in using Eventbrite for these presentations that we did, particularly the virtual ones. And then Eventbrite also gives you a link that you can send out, for people to register, that you can put in your Facebook event. You can email it out. You can put it on your webpage. So we found a lot of value in using that. So the other thing that we use is called Mailchimp, which is also a free website that you can use. And the way that we use this is for our email distribution list. So we use Mailchimp as an email platform to promote events and provide information to our email distribution. So anytime we have an event, like our first marches, we have a sign-in sheet where we ask people to give us our email to get on an email distribution list. And we uploaded all that information into Mailchimp. So now we have a list of 700 people that we can send emails to. And Mailchimp, it's a little more complicated to use, but you can create kind of like customized, you basically can create customized emails with, again, graphics. You can kind of design your email as opposed to just sending, a textual email. You can include links, you can include graphics. So this is the primary thing that we use to send out emails. And Frank mentioned media as well. So we have a media email list, and we'll send emails when we do a press release before our events. We'll send that out as well. And then lastly, Frank talked about our website a little bit. I just wanted to show you a little bit more about our website. As Frank mentioned, this is kind of our anchor. We don't go in and update this that much, but again, it has a lot of information about our organization. And the other key thing is that you need to provide people with multiple ways to access your information. So not just through Facebook, because not everybody's on Facebook, not just through your website, but the key is to have multiple ways for people to access information. So that's where our website is important. So on our website, we have a calendar of our events. And if you go back, you can see Our last event was in March, so there it is. And there's, click on this, there's information, there's the link to the Eventbrite registration, excuse me. And then we can also have, information about our prior events. So our prior pictures of our prior marches, so people can see like kind of what we're all about. And then the other thing is it can be a way to sell your merchandise if you have merchandise. Again, typically before a march, we sell t-shirts. In this case, last year, we decided to sell masks, so we have this available. So really all of these things together is what makes your organization visible and accessible. I think I covered everything.
You did. Thanks, Debbie. Great job. A couple of things I just want to emphasize here is that I know this sounds like a lot. It's fair to say that we didn't know how to do any of this stuff when we started.
Right.
We need to do this. How do we do this? We learned about Eventbrite. We tried it and we learned it. The other thing I would mention that is very important, two things. First of all, a lot of these platforms, as Debbie said, are free. Mailchimp, we use the free version. Eventbrite does not cost us anything. YouTube, to be able to do the videos, we do have to become a premium member. I think it's like $15 a month. But the point is that, and this links into the next point I was going to make, is that I'll use jargon. This technology has been democratized. We couldn't have done this 5 years ago. You would need professionals to do it for you. What's happened is the marketplace has exploded. And so what vendors have done is they've made these technologies accessible to everyday people, which is terrific for grassroots groups. That doesn't mean that, a professional is going to do it better. There's no question about that. But if you have the interest, the time, and you stick with it, you can do everything we've talked about. We didn't start with everything that we've described, and there's even more. But as time went on, we just kept on rolling it out. It's almost like Tesla, They came out with the Tesla 3, and then the Tesla X, then the Tesla Y, et cetera, et cetera. And it just keeps on evolving. I was going to make an Elon Musk joke, but I will refrain from that. Anyway, so let me go back to the PowerPoint and move to this. And so we have other interfaces with our social media, and one is an audio platform, which is again free. So we had to learn how to host audio casts, how to edit audio casts, all free. Wasn't that difficult. And after a bit of time, we were able to do it. So let me give you an example of one audio cast right here. We're going to pull it up. This is the visual I saw that you did not see. And that is the interface with Anchor, which is a podcast platform, audio cast, and YouTube. And so what I'm showing you right now would be the audio cast. So we're going to go to that again. I'll just do this. It's going to come up. And again, this is free. We loaded in a picture there, et cetera, et cetera. And if this works, you should talk about magic, Kathy. Here's the magic. We push the button and here it comes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Fear for Women's March Fort Myers. And I'm here with three of my friends to talk today with you about something that's very important that's going to be happening in the Fort Myers area on Saturday, January 23rd from 10 to 12, 10 to noon. It's a rally for unity, equality, and humanity. Let me turn to my colleagues now so you can get to know them a bit better, and then we're going to talk more about the event. Susan, we're going to start with you as a founding member of Women's March.
Hi, my name is Susan Mcguire. I am a founding member of.
We did this all on Zoom. Again, it's free, very easy to edit online, and 15 minutes or so. We then take the audio and we post it on our social media platforms. So you could actually go to this site, if you went to our Women's March Fort Myers or Twitter site. Go back so you can all see it. And what we also learned was the importance, as I mentioned earlier, of being able to learn how to make our own videos. Again, the technology has been, to use the jargon, democratized so that people like me can use it. And I also must mention the videoing and the podcasting is done through my $400 laptop, just regular audio and technical stuff. You don't have to have special equipment unless you want special equipment. And so again, the marketplace has enabled people, everyday people, grassroots groups to be able to do this. So here is an example of our YouTube.
I welcome you on behalf of our board of directors and those on today's program who will speak to a very important theme, the path forward for unity, equality, and humanity. It's now my pleasure to introduce our host and MC for the day, Anisa Kareem. Anisa?
Hi, everybody. This is a Facebook Live event and a Zoom call. So if you are on our Zoom call, please make sure to have your microphones off. My name is Anisa Kareem, and I am welcoming you today to the rally of the Women's March Fort Myers. We'd love to gather together and celebrate our accomplishments and talk about what we need to continue to do to see unity, equality.
All of this was done on Zoom. And then what we had to do, we had to use another software. We use what's called Wondershare, because sometimes technology platforms don't talk to each other. And so the recording we have tonight cannot be uploaded automatically. You have to use another software to be able to get it in the right format, which is MP4. You can edit on YouTube if you want, but it's cumbersome. And again, that was not a free software. Wondershare, I think, is about $50 a year, but it's well worth it because we have probably now, I would say, 7 or 8 videos at our YouTube channel. So we have a podcast channel for Women's March Fort Myers, and we have a YouTube channel for Women's March Fort Myers. And as I said earlier, after these things are available, we also put these audio casts and videos on Twitter, Facebook, not always on Instagram, so people can access them there. So one of the things that I hope comes through in the presentation tonight is that we really are riveted on our objectives. What are we trying to accomplish here? And then how can social media achieve those objectives? And can social media achieve those objectives? Or would one of the other platforms we've talked about be better for it? You need to be clear, obviously, about your brand, how you're presenting yourself to the public, and then how social media can reinforce and advance your brand. Sounds so obvious, but what it means is you have to be very careful about what you post and how you post and what words you use. We came to the conclusion after some discussion that it would be better to, I don't want to use the word restrict, but to limit the number of people who have posting authorization. So for our organization, it's Debbie and myself. We post. And if someone wants to post something, we would ask them to let us know what they would like to have posted, and we'll do it. And we think the number of issues that we're likely to experience will go down that way, recognizing that this is not a bureaucracy. We really want people to feel that they're involved, that Women's March is their organization. But we found with some stumbles here and there that brand management, I hate to use that, it sounds like jargon and it is really, really important. We continue monitoring the analytics. We adjust our content and approach. What's wonderful about these platforms, particularly Facebook and Twitter, is that, and also the Anchor, which is our podcast, as well as YouTube, they give you the numbers. How many people are viewing your YouTube? How many people are viewing your posts? How many people are listening to your podcasts? Facebook is outstanding because it breaks it down, as you saw, by demographics, where people live, who the people are by gender and age, and we monitor that. That's my responsibility for the most part. We've also learned, we learned our way into this, that social media and public relations are not the same. And we believe they require different point persons. There was a time when I was doing both, and it just didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is you need someone doing public relations who can develop relationships with the press, can be available for interviews, whereas, my God, posting on Facebook, Debbie and I can do that 1,500 miles away from Fort Myers in Cape Coral. But with public relations, you need a face, a presence, and you have to develop relationships. And so Marion Frayne, I mentioned before, our founding president, is now the person responsible for public relations. It's also essential to have social media backup. As I mentioned earlier, we couldn't have evolved and built up our program without Debbie's involvement, without her interest, without her commitment, without her time. We work through issues. We have a communications committee that has been as many as 4 people. The problem that we've experienced in challenge is a better word, and it's come up, is that because we're a network-based organization, the work we're talking about tonight is center stage. No one gives a crap about our board meetings. The only thing they care about is what we're offering, what we're saying, what we're communicating. So what it boils down to, and I'm laughing, and I shouldn't, is that it's like, well, wait a minute now. The communications committee is running Women's March Fort Myers. I mean, and when you think about it, well, that's not true, but in a way, there's more than a bit of truth to it, because that's the main street. It really is. It's the main street. And so you have to be very, very careful that you don't set yourself up as being sort of the chief cook and bottle washer, that you're there as a service, not as the driver of the organization. And as we've said at the very beginning, remember to make sure that you don't over-rely on one platform. And probably your heads are spinning because we now have so many platforms that we're managing. But again, if we can do it, this is not hyperbolic, anyone can, because we didn't know how to do any of this. We just decided we were going to do it. And we've learned it, and we continue to evolve it. And there's certain things Debbie does really well. I would have to pause and learn how to do Eventbrite. By the same token, I'm the one that will edit tonight's Zoom for posting. And if Debbie were to take on that role, she would have to spend some time learning Wondershare and how to upload it to YouTube. But those skills can be learned.
But just a couple points on the last slide in terms of the social media. One of the things that social media is very good for is cross collaboration and cross promoting other events. So, once you get connected to other organizations, like we're very connected with National Organization for Women, for example. When they have an event, we can share that event on our website. So it expands that reach, and vice versa. So that's really critical, is that cross promotion of of other organizations. And, you know, in some respects, we do rely on public relations, on getting press for our events, but social media does, you know, does a lot of that for us. Again, if we don't get an event in newspaper, it's not going to kill the event. You know, that's not, again, it's just another way to get information out there. And the more ways you have to get information out there, the better. And in terms of people, you know, posting on social media, we've had issues with people promoting their own agendas. So that's just something to be careful about. Like Frank, I think, said, it's like the organization, you need to be working for the organization and not for your own, you know, for your own interests, which most of us do. Most of us are doing that. So, so yeah, I just wanted to add those few comments, but, and so feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions at this point.
I've asked all of you to unmute. We can't do that. I've asked everyone to unmute. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Frank, I have to leave. I've got another Zoom call. Thank you. I've learned a lot. I
Oh,
feel
good.
overwhelmed, but I'm excited about it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good seeing you, Carol. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Frank and Debbie, I have a question. I'm wondering if you have ever considered doing group texting. I had a conversation with some coalition members today, and we were saying that everyone has got their heads in their phones, and that I also have been getting quite a few group texts from different organizations that I may be involved in. Have you looked at that as another social media platform?
So we do use group texting for the board. I'm just not, I don't know how that would work for, like, if you were going to group text 700 people. There's probably something you can use to do that, but I don't know what that is. Do you, Frank?
Well, we used what app?
WhatsApp.
We used WhatsApp as a way for group texting.
Right.
And, you know, we used it for a while, as you remember, Kathy, and Kathy Fear's on this too. And then we dropped it. And what we use as a board now is we just use regular texts.
Text, email, and we have a separate Facebook page for our board. Yeah.
But again, you have to go to that. You're right, Ellen. It's so easy to use, but we're not. I would say we stopped using WhatsApp. That doesn't mean that it's not a good option. I think it would work very well for a coalition, probably much better than a group text on your iPhone.
Thank you. I'm blown away by what the two of you have accomplished with very little, knowledge about this to start, because you have to have patience and fortitude and stick-to-itiveness to do what you've accomplished. It's very impressive.
No, thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, I would say too, it's fun. It's fun learning these skills and being able to share what you learn with others. And so.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? Does anyone else have?
Yes.
Barbara has her hand up.
I was specifically, I was the person who was one of the people who was speaking with Ellen today about the texting. And I was specifically thinking of text marketing. In other words, not just for connecting, say, with boards or just a small group of people, but to actually get your events out. Or to actually get petitions signed. Have you ever used that?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, and that's, partly because we focused on email, collecting people's email when they sign up, and just probably just not being familiar with how you do that. But I mean, I definitely think that could work if you could collect phone numbers and use a program that would send out text blasts. That could be, again, you have to look at your demographic. Like, younger people don't use email, but that they're not our demographic. So, we found,
Also,
what we've been using is effective.
Yeah.
I think to some extent, the name of your organization speaks to its audience. You know, the Women's March, women really gravitate toward that. Whereas some other things are a little less, or they're a little more obscure to them. And so you have to push more than
Yeah.
pull.
And I would say too, Barbara, what you brought up is very important. It relates to the first issue there, is that what you're talking about makes a lot, it's an objective for your organization. How do we do this? Form follows function. And I think the reason why we have not explored that is that function has not been a priority for us. So the thing is, once you identify something that's really important, again, with the democratization of the technology and with the costs coming down and so many of these things being free, you can find a means, a method to accomplish your objective. The other thing that is really important, though, I think, and we're very sensitive to this, the marketplace now has gone wild on the use of these technologies. I was talking to my spouse, Kathy Fear, the other day. I counted up in the last week, I've gotten 31 texts from the McAuliffe campaign in Virginia asking for money and also stating it in a way that I would declare to be crass. We're losing this campaign. We're failing. We need $1 million by, and after a while, you want to go to Virginia and start screaming. I'll fly there and just scream in the middle of the fight.
It's so interesting that we were talking about the fact that, the social media waxes and wanes, and it used to be emails, and then it was Facebook, and now it's very much, telephone is completely out because everybody screens their calls. So, and postcarding to some degree is okay, but it's a little expensive. So text marketing is where it's at.
Yeah.
And I wonder what's going to be next, because it has to be like smoke signals or something, because people are going to start figuring out, stop, don't send it to me.
Well,
So,
yeah, Frank, I think that's an important point, that even with Mailchimp, I think if we use social media, we have to be respectful of people's privacy and their time. And so I think there should always be an option to opt out of something. So you don't have the situation that you had, Frank, where you've got all these texts coming in and, you don't want them.
Along those
Well,
lines, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's what's ideal about social media is it's completely voluntary. It's not something, you're not getting an email that you have to deal with or a text that you have to deal with. This is something that you seek out. You may get, a news feed, but that's part of social media. You scroll through it and if you're interested, you click on it. If you're not, you don't. So that's kind of what's nice about social media is it's voluntary.
And the other thing along those lines is I talked earlier, and it's number 3 here, continue monitoring, go to your analytics. Mailchimp, and Kathy Mayo may want to speak to this, clued us in on this, is that Mailchimp, which again, we're sending emails out to the people who actually attended our past events. And it tells you how many people actually opened what percentage of people opened the email. And I thought if people came to our event, it'd be like 75%. And so, Kathy, are you there? Or you won't get that, right?
No, we get a high of about 35% opening.
Mm-hmm.
And these are now emails that go out. And I haven't been good lately about sending them out, but yeah.
But even that, my understanding, 35% is a really good
It is.
response.
Oh, and some messages will only go to 20%. We'll only get 20%. It depends on the topic, I think, and what you put in the subject line. Sometimes it's just a reminder for people. And so a lot of people don't open it because they don't need to be reminded.
Right.
And then
Hey, Frank, and I want to know what it costs to boost Facebook postings. What kind of money is that?
It's what we, as you know, Kathy, what we do is that we set a dollar amount of what we're willing to spend. Usually, I can't think of a time where it was more than $150. And then what you do is you you then specify for Facebook the kind of people you're looking for. So for example, it would be women. It would be people who are interested in social issues like social justice, issues associated with women's health, et cetera, et cetera. And then what they'll do is they'll call their database of Facebook users and then send your post to these folks. And then what we do, we know if newbies come back and like the post, and then if they like the post, we invite them to like our page. And that's one of the ways in which we grow. It is phenomenally
I've never done that.
It's a phenomenally cost effective. We have probably grown, I would say, at least 100, 150 people each time we've had a program through the paid option that way. The other thing I was going to mention too is that because of going back to the Mailchimp, if you get, I think the first time we did it, we got like a 17 or 19% open the email. And your first reaction is, we've got to send it out again. And then you have to say to yourself, wait a minute now, let's pull back and ask the question, if we sent it out the first time and they didn't open it, what's likely going to happen the second time? And ought we do that? And so it's a conversation you have, and you reach a decision. There's no right or wrong answer. But going back to your question, you can't overdo the paid option, but I would say for any event, it's well worth it because you're going to get, because of the logarithm that Facebook uses, you need to expand your reach. And you're not going to do that through the organic option. You can do it through the paid option. And they won't charge you more than what you say you want to be charged, which is great.
Oh, so you'd say,
Set a
hey,
dollar limit.
this would be worth $25 to boost it that much, and they will boost it whatever.
And they'll tell you in advance what, they can't be specific about it, but they'll say, we think if you're putting in $25 with these criteria, we think we'll be able to distribute your post to 2,500 people, 2,500 Facebook users. That's why for some of our events, when we added up all the people who had eyeballs on our post, we were getting over 25,000. Now,
Holy moly.
that's awareness. Awareness, we all know, being aware of something and then behaving is, those intuitive, they're not always connected. But your reach is, but again, these are just Facebook users.
And Frank, were you able to actually speak with an individual at Facebook, or is it text and
It's all online.
online?
You do it by, well, you have to go through a process where they verify that you're not living in Moscow or Leningrad or whatever they call it these days, and that you're really who you are. And it takes about 3 weeks to a month to get certified. Because remember, we're a 501c4 organization. We lobby. So, but once that's done, then you're raring to go, and it's very cost effective. Again, it only covers Facebook, so you're only as good as your Facebook audience. But you grow your base that way.
Yeah.
Yes,
Betty.
No, go ahead.
I'd like to have a little bit more information about how you're using social media to reach, for press releases and to reach the media, and how you came up with your list and what kind of information you send to them.
Do you want me to answer that, Frank? Because I've worked on
Why
that.
don't you start and then I'll add if
Yeah.
I.
So we actually are, we're not really using social media. We're using an email distribution list. And that list has kind of been compiled with input from other people who worked for other organizations. So we kind of got a list and then added to that list. So what we'll do for an event, in advance of an event, is we'll write up a press release and we'll send that out. We have a distribution that goes to media contacts and print contacts, print media and TV media. And then we just email that out. And then,
Okay.
you know, it has links to our Facebook page and the Eventbrite if it's an event like that. So we would have that information. So then the press could go, you know, and get more information if they need it.
Yeah,
And again,
I want
it
to
gets,
start
you know,
building a list.
yeah. Yeah, that
You know-
actually would be something valuable that the coalition could facilitate. Yeah,
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
media list. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important.
You might be able to get help from the public library. We started out by using the media list that Southwest Florida Reading Festival had. And because I'm a retired librarian and I had access to their database, but I know they have shared it with other groups as well, and that they keep pretty timely. But I'm assuming that all libraries do this because, you know, they send out all that stuff.
It's an interesting source. I never
Yeah,
knew about that. Yeah.
And I would say one of the things we've learned, and it just makes sense. I was looking at the numbers the other day, and for something I was writing up, there's been such compression in the press industry and the media industry. You may have a really good contact and that person leaves, or
Yeah.
the job has been removed.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and Marion Frayne is our point person on this, what she found with the original list that I secured from a colleague, as Debbie was referring to earlier, that a lot of those people no longer are in the Fort Myers market. And so you send them an email and it bounces back.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
thing that I think is really important is that whatever that list is at time one, it needs to be really, it's a living, breathing document. It needs to change.
Yeah.
Because the
That-
industry is fluid.
That brings me to another question, which is how big is your board? How many people do you have that are actual workers? I'm not talking about the people that you have to drag, you know, off their sofa to do something. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the people who actually work in your group.
So we've had anywhere from 10 to 15 people. We
Wow.
currently have 9 on the board. And when we put on an event, we basically delegate, you know, everybody, we have different committees, you know, whether it be logistics program, and everybody on the board has to sign up. You know, that's one of the kind of requirements to be on the board. Everybody has to kind of sign up to be on one of the committees.
And when you do events, do you do events, you know, snap events, or do you do just, you know, every year you're going to do the Women's March and maybe there's something else that you do on a regular basis?
Yeah,
so
so
you
our
have-
events are planned months in advance. You know, I think the shortest one was when we planned the first march in 2 months. But, you know, usually we like 3 to 6 months, depending on the event. So we are starting to plan our January event, which is going to be, you know, some type of a rally march, women's march for democracy.
Good. That's a good-
January 22nd.
January 22nd at the Alliance for the Arts. Because we really liked that venue the last time we were there 2 years ago.
Well, the one we're having in Naples, I live in Lee now, but I'm still half belong in Collier, so I sort of straddle both. And the one we're doing in Naples is on January 15th.
Right.
And it's going to be Truth, Democracy, and we're dabbling with patriotism. Because one of the things that we decided to do with our logo is put the American flag in there, because the right seems to, you know, have taken ownership of the flag and ownership of patriotism. And so we sort of feel that we're trying to take it back. So that's
I
what
can tell you, some people will view that
we know.
suspiciously.
Yeah, we know that.
And if they don't
But-
know your organization, they'll wonder, like, what kind of you know, which way is this
Yeah,
leaning?
I realize that, but
It's
it's gotta,
unfortunate, but
it's got to start somewhere.
yeah.
You know, we've got to start somewhere, making sure that this doesn't continue, because it's very
Yeah.
off-putting.
I just wanted to close things out. It's almost 8:30 and want to thank you for this. It was wonderful. And I say that I'll be sending, as soon as Frank or Debbie sends me, what would it be, a YouTube?
Yeah,
A
it'll be a
YouTube
URL. Mhm.
recording, I will send it out to coalition members. So I'll do that. And I just wanted to let everyone know of the the best practice Zooms that are coming up in September. So September 23rd at 7 p.m., we're going to be talking about public relations. And Casey Schulberg and Cynthia Odierna are going to be hosting that. September 30th, a topic that is near and dear to, I think, all of the organization's hearts, which is attracting, onboarding, and mobilizing new members. And that's going to be hosted by Uriel Perez from the Coalition of Immokalee Workers and Ellen Hemrick from Surge. So those are the next two. And if anyone wants to register for that, just send me an email and I will send you the Zoom link like I did for this one about 2 days before, because Frank told me what the best practice is. We don't want any Zoom bombing, right? Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you
Very
very
much. This was wonderful.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Ellen.
you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, Ellen.